We saved a Porsche Boxster from the Junkyard and are now giving it new life as a 1960s inspired vintage supercar. We began by stuffing Tony's father's Ford V8 into it, lengthened the wheelbase, designed the body, laid out the framework, and today we begin hand forming the aluminum skin that will make up the exterior body. All that and more in this week's episode of Project Jigsaw. This is what fuels me is spicy water.
Good thing it's thick leather if you're gonna put stabby things in there.
I got lots of stabby things in here. If anyone's messing with me, it's like, ow, I stabbed myself with my ruler when I put that back in. Today is a big day. We are starting to skin Project Jigsaw. I forgot the name of the project, mid-sentence there. So before I could skin it though, I need to make a template. And that means we get to use our good old friend poster board, because everything we do in this shop is basically a kindergarten project.
Yeah, I feel like it's arts and crafts a lot of times.
So I'm gonna start out by making the panel that goes from the edge of our vent back to the end of the cowl here. Probably the biggest piece to make in one go. Already about it for the pattern. There's not really a whole lot going on here, and I'm just gonna do half of it and flip it to make the full piece. If it was something like this, I would get a little bit more in depth with the pattern, but also at the same time, I typically do like patterns off of actual cars. So I have lots of shape to put tape over and whatnot and get all the data. Here we just have a couple ribs, so it's kind of a little bit of guesstimation. Oh yeah, pardon me. You ready for this, Tony?
We'll see.
So my pattern, right, it's half of the pattern. So, but if I tape the center here, I can trace this side, ready? And then I can, whoop,
nice.
do that side, like a book page.
Yeah.
Books have pages.
Some like pop-up book or something when you were a kid.
That would be kind of sick if you opened it up and flipped it over and like a castle popped up.
Yeah.
No, stop distracting me, I have stuff to do. I'm excited. Finally start shaping some metal for this thing that's not like bracketry or vent. This is some actual shape. I haven't shaped anything like major in quite some time. It's time to finally remove our jig pieces for Jigsaw's subframe. Can you not? Yummy. This shear is not made for material this thick. And it is struggling because the way a shear like this works is like a pair of scissors. It tears it and spreads it apart, whereas like a cutoff wheel or circular saw or a different kind of shear would actually make waste material that like, you know, if you throw away. What's happening right now is when I use the shear, it's making this kind of ripply in the edge because it's stretching it. Not ideal. So for next week, we're definitely gonna have to get a different shear.
We have a lot of aluminum to cut.
Yeah, we have a lot of aluminum to cut. But whatever, we're gonna keep rolling. This is your key to success if you're metal shaping. It's a radius gauge. It has the numbered radii for whatever tooling you have. How this works, I can look at this tubing right here, right? It goes across the front of the car, however, it's not completely flat. I can use this gauge to figure out what radius it is. So like it's not a 12, it's not a 24, it looks to be about a 36. I mean, it depends on the area you look at, but I'd say it's about a 36, which is right there in the center. In this direction, I'm looking at more of a 24. So, knowing that, I'm gonna start probably with a 36 in the wheel, and maybe just kind of whoop it over a little bit, but we'll see here. The numbers on this correspond with the numbers on our metal shaping tooling. Whether it's the Planishing Hammer, where we have these dies, and they're all numbered, that one's a 36. So actually, I could use this one technically to shape the hood if I wanted to. However, I'm gonna use the English wheel because it's a large rolling panel, and the Planishing Hammer has a much smaller footprint, which leaves more room for error with a large panel. Now what I'm doing is getting my layout on the panel. So this is the panel made for my template. I added what's called a frame to the outside. This is roughly an inch of safety. Well, there's two reasons I have this frame. When I shape the panel, it's gonna move around. So it's important to have a little bit extra in case, you know, I joggle to the side or I stretch so much or shrink the edges down and it pulls it in. It's a layer of safety. The other thing it does, it frames your shape in. When I put shape in the middle of this panel, right, And if I'm stretching it and my stretch goes off the end entirely, it's gonna bleed out the edge and kind of splay out. But if I keep a frame here that I don't stretch or shrink, it'll lock it in. But now what I'm doing is laying out a grid so I can kind of keep track of where I've wheeled. Because it's very easy to like lose yourself in the orientation of the panel and like accidentally overwheel an area because you hit it twice. What I like to do is put little sectors on the panel that will help me identify where I've been and kind of alleviate the chance of that happening. The way this works is you have your lower anvil, which I already explained has your certain radii that you choose, then your upper anvil is flat. When I go down here and I crank this wheel, it has a corkscrew to it, and it adds pressure against the upper anvil. And then what it does is it squishes the metal and pushes it out to stretch it. A good way to think about metal is what Ray Schlane says, which is to think of it as clay. Metal is basically clay. If you take clay and you smash it and it's into a flat pancake, it's gonna stretch the surface and make it flatter or wider or whatever. So the same thing applies to metal. If I go here and I stretch it, I'm gonna increase the surface area and it has to go somewhere. I'm gonna use my experience of using the wheel and use it correctly to stretch it in the way I need it to go, which means I need to be very precise, I need to be consistent, and I need to be patient because the wheel is one of those things that you don't wanna just crank down really hard and go really fast because you're gonna have these weird lines in it. And it's really important that as I wheel it, I keep it parallel to the floor. Because if I don't do that, I'm gonna add what Lassie calls puckles, which are little like twist marks in the panel, and that's not what you want. So on the wheel, on this side of the panel, I've went across and I've went back consistently. And you can already see that it's beginning to get a little bit of shape because it kind of domes a bit on the table. Whereas this side, it's pushed up from the side, but it's completely flat. In fact, it almost goes like that. That's the power of the wheel right there, baby. So the one thing that's really bothering me about the panel is from the shear, making the edge like bacon and stretching it. I'm gonna attempt to reverse it by just shrinking the edge very lightly, which is actually relatively common to do anyway on like a hood panel or like a door skin, to kind of make it slide. Probably won't fit great because I oversized it, but kind of get an idea of where we're headed. So if I just push this down, yeah, I can just push that down to where it needs to be. About the center of the tube. There. The problem is, because I oversized the panel, it's hitting where it's already kind of like reverse curving up. So I need to decide, am I going to trim this back and just keep it a flat panel and make this panel be like what curves down and back up again, which would be very complicated, or should I stretch this up? I think I'm gonna add that reverse curve to the edge of the center panel here, because what's gonna happen down the road in the project, when I make the humps over the wheels, they're gonna have a reverse curve as well that goes back into that, which means my weld seam is gonna be basically right here, which is kind of advantageous, I think, because it can kind of hide in that blend. Worst case scenario, if I can't get this reverse curve to be how I want it to be, I can just cut it off. Oh, how the turntables this video, Tony.
Right? There we go.
Not only am I teaching Tony metal shaping, I'm also teaching him how to use the cameras. Can your brain handle all this teaching?
I have to learn it all.
Mark the side that I can't see. This isn't gonna work. I'm gonna have to move that.
Well, you can English wheel and planish hammer at the same time.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. This is the first wheel we ever got. I obviously reinforced it with some random scrap metal. The Harbor Freight wheel, don't really use it. This is Tony's wheel. This is a starter wheel.
My training wheel?
Yeah, it's a training wheel. I like that. It's gonna try to just very, very gently. That's not gonna work. The panel's so thick, and the way this cam works, like if I go to full tightness, it's too tight. But if I go back one notch, it's a little too loose. And then also it kind of vibrates itself back off where it should be. So, plan B, English wheel. Yeah, it's working. I got a couple little mess ups here. I went a little too far though. What is life without adversity? Challenges.
That actually looks really tough trying to keep that on that edge.
Yeah, and I'm watching from a different area code. Yeah, it's working. So it's working my fingers. I am purely just roughing this in right now, so don't mind the rough lines. Or you can mind them if you want, but you're wrong.
They're gonna go away.
Yeah. All right, so now that wasn't me. So now that I have a little bit more control of the panel, it's locked in, I have a little channel here, I'm gonna try this again. Maybe it'll stay in where it's supposed to be now. A little bit of penetrant should help keep this from sticking so much. The downside to the penetrant is that it takes off the marker. I know what I'm doing here, so it should be fine. See if it fits. All right, so it looks like I need to make that sharper still because you can almost fit your finger between the tube here. It's the same on both sides. Needs to go in deeper so I can go. I'm not liking how this whole flanging is going on the edge. What's happening is I'm using a planishing hammer to force it over, but also stretch it so it curves downwards. I think I'm overstretching, especially on this side where it kind of bows a little bit more. And the other problem is I need this to kind of go in further and stretch up more. There's just a lot going on, and I'm afraid that I'm going to overwork it and then run into issues where I have to backtrack a lot, and I don't want to have to do that. Another thing that stands out to me right now is, now that this is kind of like locked in on the edges, the center here is a little bit too low. It needs to come up, which will allow the panel to also sit down. So I think I'm gonna switch tracks and resume wheeling the panel some more to kind of get it to sit a little bit better, and then we'll revisit these edges once I think about them some more. Just wheel from there. Bulge this up. So now I think I have it roughly where I want it to be. So there's a thing I'm gonna do called washing the panel now, which is where I take the English wheel, I'm gonna have barely any pressure at all, and I'm gonna go at an angle, like an X. I'm gonna go this way, then I'm gonna go this way. And that'll wash the panel, which will essentially massage the high spots and the low spots into the same plane without actually stretching it much. But the goal wouldn't be not to stretch at all. About like right there should be good. You can see kind of how the panel like rocks around there from
it goes over the bumps.
Yeah. Like a dance. Wow, that is so much better. So I circled a little bit of a bulge in the panel there. Earlier in the video, I mentioned about how you need to be extremely consistent when you're shaping metal with the English wheel. And this circled area right here, I did an extra pass on inadvertently. So now there's a high spot. It's all your fault, Tony.
Was it really inadvertently?
Well, couple options here. One would be to shrink that. The other would be to kind of massage around it and get it to equal it and blend it out. I'm going to choose to blend it out.
I think that's a good call.
It's amazing how fast this stuff moves. That was maybe 5 minutes of wheeling.
Yeah, tops.
If even, and it already is pretty much rectified. I think it's as far as I'm gonna go with it right now anyway. One of the benefits to having our front clamshell, if you're not aware, we're gonna have a pivot in the front so you can like open and close it. But right now it's just sitting on our little jig blocks. So the benefit is I can take it off and it's gonna retain the same shape, which means I can take it off and look at the back side of this panel and see how it actually is fitting, because sure, it looks great right now, but it could be floating above the tubing. But I mean, right now looking at it, it looks really good. Nothing on a car is straight. I don't think there's a single thing on a car that's perfectly straight. I mean, yeah, there's old American cars. We don't talk about the Cybertruck. There are cars, yes, in American cars that are slabs that are mostly straight. We have a lot of real estate and none of it's flat, none of it's straight. It kind of dips and goes up and dips again. I don't want anything on this car to be boring.
I think we'll have to work on the doors.
Yeah, the doors for sure are a little boring right now, but they're gonna come way later, so.
Yep.
Where we're going, we don't need doors. Oh, this thing looks so good. Now that I have it clamped down, it's a little high in the center, but it's mainly because these sides right here, they're causing it to curve more this way than it should. I think I messed up when I did them. Initially, when I used the wheel to bend it over, we were fine. It wasn't going as well as I wanted it to. It wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to, but it wasn't stretching it much. As soon as I switched to the planishing hammer, and I had to crank up the planishing hammer to get it to move the way I wanted it to, because how thick it is, it stretched it too much, which caused it to curve this way. To help visualize what I'm explaining, I'll show you. This is the hood right here. This is the piece that kicks up, but it's exaggerated to a 90-degree angle. As I was using the planishing hammer, the impact from the anvil and the hammer itself was causing the metal to stretch. Because it's stretching, it's causing it to curve a lot. Because as this is getting stretched, that material is forcing the panel of the hood to curve downwards. So if I apply it over here, it's causing it to bow too much this way. To undo that, I would have to shrink this. The problem with that is the shrinking also has to happen pretty far in. So what I could do is go through the kick shrinker, mar it all up by shrinking it, and then have to start all over again. Or I can just cut it off because I can make this bend be more part of this piece that comes here. And I think I'm gonna choose to cut it off and take it as a learning experience.
Make it a problem for future Ryan.
Yeah, and screw that guy. Shoop.
Ryan, you shouldn't have.
Wow.
I go big.
Touching here and here, so if I relax that up with the wheel, it should clean this up. It does sit a lot better now, holy cow. Still touching there, but these two spots are still holding it up.
Our vent is pretty much there.
Yep, it's within, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
Roughly there.
Roughly there.
So the next piece to make is this giant window right here, which is probably the most easy piece on the entire car to make. You know what that means, Tony?
Why are you looking at me? Oh, this is the easiest piece, so we'll give it to Tony.
Listen, all right, here's the deal. In the metal shaping world, aluminum is known as an extremely tough metal to work with because it's not forgiving, it moves very quickly. If you make a mistake, the mistake happens 10 times faster than it does with steel. So the easiest piece should be delegated to the most inexperienced person in the room, which is him.
I'm completely aware that it's a good decision. I just don't like that that is a good decision. Looks like I cut it out, right? There we go. Now it's time to wheel.
Tony did a metal shaping class at Pro Shaper with Ray Shalane. How long ago?
2019.
So he has some experience.
But obviously that was 4 years ago. And it was over the course of like 4 days, so.
We're gonna see where his teaching landed him, I guess. Yeah. And if he actually retained any of it.
I think the retention is the bigger part of it here.
Yeah. I did a week-long class with Lasse in like 2017 maybe. And then I did a one-on-one with Chris Runge like a year later. And then I did one more metal shaping class with Jake the Flying Dutchman. Other than that, we're all self-taught through trial and error. And Tony sure is trying.
Yep, and probably erroring. Oh, it doesn't seem like I put much in it.
What's your pressure like? Did you change pressure at all?
I didn't change pressure at all.
Tony! Do you pick up a welder and not change the settings on it too?
Well, if somebody that was welding before me that was really good, I might try it.
So you wouldn't keep my settings, that's for sure. Your wheel lines look nice and tight. There you go. One thing to keep in mind with wheeling, keep going, is no matter how fast you go, you're gonna get the same result. Because the pressure is going to be the same regardless. So you don't need to rush it. You can take your time if you need to.
Right, speed comes with confidence and competence and experience,
Yeah. And you know what practice gets you?
Progress.
Yeah.
That's what you like to say.
I'm gonna make that a shirt. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. You know, I didn't come very close to the edge here, so this area here is relatively untouched. We have the same issue here that we had coming down into it, which makes sense, which is...
Needs a little bit of curl.
Yep, needs a little reverse going.
And then once you fix that, you can kind of slide it down in, because right now it's sitting on top of the tube at the back here. It's kind of hard to film, but there you go. It's sitting on top of the tube and it's keeping it from going down where it needs to be. I'd say mark it and curl the edges. You've proven yourself worthy.
Oh, thank you.
Also, we did determine that the tube going across the center here is very flat. In fact, it's almost more than flat and almost curves the wrong way.
Right.
That's something that happened in the process of making this. So that's not gonna stay like that probably.
We don't want this to match that because that's too flat.
That's too flat. We don't want anything flat in this car.
Only to goof it up, potentially.
Mm-hmm. That's what we do here. We goof. Professional chaos.
We're always goofing around. Something or the other.
There are like 7 clowns in this room. The funny thing is we only have 6 inflatable clowns. And one of them has my name on them, so that only leaves one other one.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's what we want right there. Do that the same on the other side. That looks way better.
All right. All right, well then, Ryan says we're there. So we're
I think
there.
you're close enough because really what we're doing right now is roughing in panels. We just gotta get these pieces lapped together. So after these 2 pieces, we're gonna do the side pieces here. And when those are on, they're gonna overlay on top of this one or underneath, depending on how they fit. And then we can kind of decide where to go from there. Good job.
Thanks.
Looks good.
Yeah, a good reintroduction back into wheeling.
A wheelie good
Wheeling,
reintroduction.
yeah, wheelie.
You've probably noticed Eastwood's name throughout our shop because yes, we are sponsored by Eastwood. However, there's no contract that says that we have to say only nice things about their products or the company. However, I will say we do really like their tools. We have welders, we have a CNC plasma table for them, we have lots of hand tools, air tools, you name it, we probably have because Eastwood likes to send us stuff. On that same note, we also have a discount code, Ryan10, that you can use on Eastwood's website to get 10% off anything on the whole site.
You may have noticed the clown posse hanging around the shop lately. We got them to do some drive testing and then our workflow schedule changed, so they've kind of just been hanging out doing nothing. If you have any ideas of how we could put them to better use, let us know. And Ryan, if you're here, who's holding the camera?
I will fight you. Why'd you pick that clown of all the clowns? Why is it always me?
We finally got our English wheel dusted off and started working our new aluminum sheets. Come back next week as we shape the tops of these front fenders and this thing really starts to take shape. I said shape twice.
It doesn't matter. You can say shape as many times as you want.
You're really out of shape, Ryan.
That's true. It's true.